Kiora had finally gotten her baby to sleep. The little boy had been fussy all day, so the quiet moment felt like a small win. She sat down on the bed, exhaled, and reached for a glass of water. That's when her husband's phone vibrated on the table beside her. It kept buzzing like something urgent. She wasn't trying to snoop. It was just instinct. She picked it up just to check if it was work. But what she saw made her whole body freeze. A message had popped up, and attached to it was a photo, a smiling face, a face she knew like her own, but not like this. Dressed in red lace, posed in a way that no sister should ever be seen. Not on her husband's phone. It was Mbeni, her sister, her blood. Kiora's mouth went dry. Her fingers trembled, almost dropping the phone. She blinked, hoping her eyes were playing tricks. Maybe it was someone who just looked like Mbeni. Maybe it was a prank. But no, it was her. Her smile, her birthmark, even the necklace Kiora had gifted her years ago. The caption under the photo read, "You still want me tonight?" Kiora whispered, "No, not Mbeni." Her voice cracked. Her heart felt like it had been ripped in two. The room suddenly felt too small, too dark. Memories flashed. Childhood laughter, shared secrets, matching dresses, all now poisoned by that single image. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a kind of heartbreak that words couldn't hold. She didn't scream. She didn't throw the phone. She just sat there, staring. In 1 second, everything changed. The trust, the love, the family. It didn't just break. It burned. And in that fire, something inside her shifted, not with noise, but with a silence that said, "This is not over." And the worst part? Her husband was still out there, smiling, breathing, living like nothing had happened, while she sat in that room, shattered, holding a photo that would change everything. Kiora didn't shout. She didn't ask why. She didn't run to her sister or her husband with tears and questions. Instead, she chose silence, a deep, heavy silence that said everything without a single word. When Mbeni walked into the house later that evening, laughing on the phone like nothing had happened, Kiora just watched her, not like a sister, but like a stranger, a guest, someone who didn't belong anymore. She looked at Mbeni carefully, noticed the lipstick, the way her hips swayed, the smile that used to mean something, but now it felt fake. Every memory they shared, dancing as little girls, whispering secrets, crying over silly things, they all felt like lies. Kiora thought about the times Mbeni had borrowed her clothes and never returned them, the friends she flirted with, knowing they liked Kiora first, the attention she always seemed to steal, and now, her husband. That night, when Dario came home, he kissed Kiora on the cheek like always. She smiled back, like nothing had changed. She asked how work was, if he was hungry. Then she walked into the kitchen and served his food with calm hands. Rice, stew, plantains, just like she always did. But inside, her heart was shattered in 1,000 quiet pieces. She sat across from him at the table and watched him eat, watched how he avoided her eyes just a little too much, how he chewed slower than usual, like he knew something was off, but didn't dare ask. He didn't know she had already seen everything that she already knew, that the photo of her sister in lingerie had burned itself into her mind forever. But she didn't speak, because what was there to say? She had already lived the lie. She had already trusted too much, smiled too hard, believed in the love that wasn't real. She had shared a bed with betrayal, eaten dinner beside dishonesty, laughed with people who wore masks. So now, what explanation could fix any of it? Dario looked at her once and tried to say something, but she only nodded softly and cleared the table. She washed the plates, dried her hands, and put her baby to sleep. No yelling, no crying, just silence. And that silence? It wasn't weakness, it was power. Because the moment Kiora stopped reacting, they lost control. Her silence didn't mean she didn't know. It meant she was thinking, planning, watching, waiting. And Dario should have feared that more than any scream she could have ever let out. It was a Friday night when Kiora told Dario she was stepping out to visit a friend. She smiled, picked up her bag, and walked out the front door. But she didn't go far. She quietly circled the house, slipped through the back gate, and entered through the kitchen door like a shadow. Her heart was racing, not from fear, but from the feeling deep in her chest that something was very, very wrong. She had been silent for weeks now, pretending, watching, learning. But tonight, she needed answers, not words. Proof. The house was quiet, except for the soft hum of the fridge and a sound, laughter, light, sweet laughter, floating down the stairs. It wasn't the sound of television. It was real, human, She recognized that laugh. It was her sister's. Mbeni. Kiora moved slowly, her steps careful like she was walking on glass. The closer she got to the stairs, the clearer the voices became. A man's voice, Dario's, murmuring something, and then Mbeni's giggle again. She felt her chest tighten, but she didn't stop. She climbed each step like it was a mountain, her fingers gripping the wall for balance. At the top, the bedroom door was slightly open, just enough. She peeped in, and what she saw made her blood go cold. Dario's phone was on a tripod, camera facing the bed. The room was dimly lit, but not dark enough to hide the truth. The bed wasn't messy from sleep. It was styled, decorated, prepared. She saw rose petals, candles, perfume bottles on the table that weren't hers. And then Dario's voice filled the room. "You make me feel alive again." He wasn't talking to Kiora. He was talking to Mbeni, her sister, the woman she had grown up with, shared secrets with, shared parents with, the same woman now sitting where she should have been, smiling like this was all normal. Kiora didn't step in. She didn't scream. She didn't faint. Instead, she took out her phone, pressed record, and captured it all. The room, the voices, the setup, every word that confirmed her worst fears. She stood there for a few minutes, steady and quiet, like someone watching a movie they already knew the ending to. She didn't cry, because something inside her had already broken long ago. Tonight wasn't about heartbreak. It was about truth. She turned away quietly, walked down the stairs the same way she came, and left through the kitchen door. Her hands were steady now, her face calm. She finally had what she needed. Not just suspicion, not just silence, but proof. Kiora didn't scream, beg, or cause a scene. She didn't go around asking people to believe her. She knew people often choose the version of the story that makes them comfortable. So, she didn't try to explain anything. Instead, she gathered the truth, piece by piece, like someone preparing for a quiet war. She went through Dario's phone, saving every message he had sent to Mbeni. She screenshotted everything, the names, the photos, the dates. She even printed out the voice notes and transcribed every word. The part where he said, "You make me feel alive," and when he promised to leave Kiora for her sister. She kept the hotel receipts, the mobile money transfers, and even a selfie he had taken shirtless in their bedroom while she was out buying food. Every little thing became a tool, a weapon, but not to destroy, to reveal. Once she had everything in a folder, she made copies. One for her parents, one for Mbeni's parents, one for Dario's older brother, and one, the most important, for Dario's boss, who also happened to be a respected church deacon, the same man who once blessed their marriage, the same man who had warned Dario that leadership in the church required a clean life. She didn't write a letter, no dramatic explanations. She just placed the photos, the screenshots, and the transcripts neatly inside an envelope and wrote the name on the front. She sent them quietly through courier. No return address, no signature, just the raw, cold truth. When her parents called, shocked and confused, she said, "I just sent you something you deserve to know." When Dario's mother called her crying, asking if it was true, Kiora calmly replied, "You'll find all the answers in the envelope," and then she turned off her phone. She didn't wait for apologies. She didn't want drama. Her job wasn't to convince anyone. It was to stop lying to herself. She had trusted them, both of them, with her heart, her home, her future. And they broke it like it was nothing. So she took the trust they had shattered and turned it into truth. Not with a fight, not with noise, but with facts no one could deny. No shouting, no scenes, just quiet, clean evidence. And in the end, her silence was louder than any scream. Sunday came like any normal day, but for Kiora, it was the day everything would be laid bare. She sent out simple invitations to both sides of the family, hers and Dario's. Nothing fancy, just a calm message. "Come for dinner. We need to talk." Family matters should stay in the family. Everyone thought it was just a regular family gathering. No one knew what was waiting. That evening, the dining table was full. Plates of rice, stew, and grilled fish were passed around. Laughter floated in the air. Small talk echoed from every corner. But Kiora noticed the way Dario avoided her eyes, how Mbeni smiled too hard. She saw it all, but said nothing. She smiled gently, served everyone with care, and waited until they had all eaten halfway. Then she stood up. "Before we have dessert," she said softly, I want to show something. Everyone turned toward her, confused. She walked over to the projector, closed the curtains, and dimmed the lights. The room fell silent. One click, then the screen lit up. The first photo appeared. Mbeni, in lingerie. Gasps filled the room. Then came the screenshots of messages, the money transfers, the hotel receipts. Then voice notes. Dario's voice saying things no husband should ever say. The room shifted. Chairs creaked. Forks dropped. Mbeni sat frozen. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Dario's hands shook under the table. He looked at Kiora, pleading with his eyes. But she didn't flinch. Then came the final video, the one from their bedroom, where Dario had set up the camera for Mbeni. His words played loud and clear. You make me feel alive. Suddenly, Kiora's mother covered her mouth and fainted. Her father stared at the screen, then whispered under his breath, Ya Rabbi. The room was dead silent, like the air had been sucked out. Kiora didn't shout. She didn't cry. She simply turned off the projector, walked back to her seat, and looked around the table. Everyone stared at her now, not with pity, but with shock, with guilt, with shame. She stood again, took a deep breath, and said, You can all finish your food. It'll be the last time we eat as one family. Then she picked up her son from his chair, kissed him on the forehead, and walked out of the room. Not one person followed her, not even Mbeni, because in that moment everyone knew Kiora hadn't lost anything. She had exposed everything. After the dinner, the whole family was shaken, but instead of feeling sorry, Mbeni started defending herself. She told anyone who would listen that it was just a one-time mistake, that it didn't mean anything, that Kiora had pushed Dario away, that she had become cold, distant, and boring as a wife. She tried to make herself the victim, tried to paint Kiora as the reason everything fell apart. But Kiora had prepared for this too. She had lived with quiet pain long enough to know how people twist the truth. So before the dinner, she had already started sharing the truth carefully, piece by piece, with the right people. She didn't go around gossiping. She didn't cry in public. She simply visited a few trusted neighbors, spoke to the older aunties in hushed tones, showed them the photos, the printed messages, the voice notes. She visited a spiritual elder in the community, someone both families respected deeply, and calmly laid everything before him. She didn't need to beg for anyone to believe her. She had proof, and when the truth is clear, it speaks louder than lies. So when Mbeni began her damage control, trying to play the poor sister who just made a mistake, the community didn't buy it. The neighbors she smiled at every day now avoided her eyes. The aunties who used to praise her now shook their heads in silence. Even her own mother struggled to defend her. And Kiora, she walked with her head held high, not because she wanted attention, but because she had nothing to hide. She had loved, trusted, and been betrayed, but she didn't let that break her. People stopped whispering, Poor woman, how could her husband do that to her? Instead, they started saying, That woman is strong. She handled it with dignity. She didn't fight. She revealed. Because the truth is, Kiora didn't destroy her family. She didn't ruin anything. She just turned on the light in a room that had been dark for too long. She didn't break the house. She just pulled the curtains back so everyone could see what was already broken inside. And when people finally saw the truth, they didn't blame her. They respected her for being quiet but firm, for not letting shame bury her, for standing up, not with noise, but with proof. In the end, the shame didn't stay on her shoulders. She returned it to the ones who earned it. After the dinner, Dario's world started falling apart. People at church started avoiding him. His boss looked at him with disappointment. His own family didn't speak much. But instead of feeling truly sorry, Dario began trying to fix things the easiest way he knew, by begging. He showed up at Kiora's workplace with flowers. He knelt down in front of her office. He cried in front of her colleagues and asked for forgiveness. Said it was all a mistake. Said he missed his son, that he missed her, that he wanted to come home. But Kiora had already made her decision. She had filed for divorce, quietly, through a trusted lawyer. She had also filed for full custody of their son, not out of revenge, but because she had to protect her child. She had seen enough betrayal. Her child didn't deserve to grow up in confusion and pain. One day, Dario tried something else. He came to her house asking to take their son for a weekend visit. He said he just wanted time with him, nothing else. Kiora didn't shout. She didn't argue. Instead, She calmly handed over a file to the police. Inside were screenshots of the messages Dario had sent Mbeni, promising they would run away together with the baby. Messages where he said he'd take what was his and disappear. That was enough. The police stepped in. The court took the matter seriously. The judge read the messages, looked at the documents, and looked at Kiora, a mother who had done nothing but protect her son. The court granted her full custody, no visits without supervision. Dario stood there in court, wiping his tears. His lawyer had nothing more to say. He had ruined everything with his own hands. And when the judge made the final decision, Dario didn't argue. He just lowered his head and cried. Outside the courtroom, he looked around, maybe hoping to find Mbeni waiting to comfort him. But she wasn't there. She had disappeared. No calls, no support, no goodbye. The woman he betrayed his wife for was gone, and the wife he thought would take him back. She was already walking toward her car, holding her son's hand, her back straight and calm. She didn't need to scream. "I told you so." She had the truth, the law, and her peace. Dario had lost everything. And Kiora, she had finally taken her life back. Months had passed since the divorce, and life had slowly started to feel normal again for Kiora. She was working, caring for her son, and healing in her own quiet way. Then, one evening, her phone rang. The name on the screen stopped her heart for a second. It was Mbeni. She almost didn't pick up, but something told her to answer. Mbeni's voice was weak, broken, full of pain. She said she had just given birth. She was alone. The man she had left everything for, the one who promised her a new life, had vanished as soon as the baby came. No visits, no money, not even a call. Mbeni believed the baby was Dario's. She sounded desperate. She begged Kiora to talk, to forgive, to maybe help her understand what to do next. She kept saying, "I didn't know it would turn out like this." But Kiora already knew the truth. Long before the family dinner, long before the court, Kiora had done something quietly. She had found out Mbeni was pregnant and waited for the right time. She collected a used tissue from Mbeni's bag one day, after Mbeni had visited the house pretending to apologize. She also found one of Dario's old razors. Then she paid for a private DNA test. The results came back just days before the dinner disaster. The baby wasn't Dario. The child belonged to someone else entirely. A married man Mbeni had been seeing on the side, even while chasing after Dario. A man with his own wife and children. A man who clearly never planned to stay. So when Mbeni called, crying and confused, Kiora didn't raise her voice. She didn't say hurtful things. She simply sent her a message. No words, no anger. Just a photo of the DNA results. The truth was there in black and white. Dario was not the father. Kiora didn't add a single sentence. No advice, no comfort, just facts. A few minutes later, Mbeni replied with a long message full of apologies and regrets. She said she was sorry for everything, that she had lost too much, that she didn't know who she was anymore. But Kiora didn't reply, because this time, silence was the answer. She didn't need to prove anything. The truth had already spoken, and just like that, the final thread between them was cut. Kiora had lost a sister once, but what she gained back was her peace. Kiora could have screamed. She could have taken her pain and turned it into fire, but she didn't. She chose a different path, not because she was weak, but because she was finally strong enough to let go. After everything that had happened, the betrayal, the lies, the divorce, she didn't stay behind to watch anyone fall. She packed her bags, took her son's hand, and moved into a small, peaceful apartment on the other side of town. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers, and it was quiet. That was all she needed. She found a new job where no one knew her story, no whispers, no judgment, just fresh starts. She began to rebuild, not just her career or her home, but her sense of self, day by day, step by step. She didn't post anything online. She didn't warn others. She didn't even block Dario or Mbeni. She simply stopped engaging. She left the storm behind like it never touched her. Not because it didn't hurt, it did, but because she refused to live in that pain anymore. Her son asked questions sometimes, like why Daddy doesn't visit much, or where Auntie Mbeni went. Kiora never lied, but she never poisoned his heart either. She just said, sometimes people make bad choices, but we can still choose to be kind. He grew up hearing stories of courage and kindness, not revenge and bitterness. Over time, life did its own work. Dario lost his job after being caught lying to a client. Word spread. People stopped trusting him. He tried to start over in a smaller company, but things never really picked up again. As for Mbeni, she disappeared one day without a word. No goodbye, no forwarding address. No one knew if she ran away or just gave up. Some said they saw her in another town, struggling with her child, looking older than her years. But Kiora didn't watch. She didn't ask. She didn't care, because she had already chosen peace. In her quiet little home, with plants on the windowsill and soft music playing in the evenings, she began to thrive. Her son learned to cook with her. They danced on weekends. They read books, told jokes, lived simply. She smiled more, laughed again, loved herself in a way she never had before. People who met her now couldn't believe the storm she had walked through, because she didn't wear it like a badge. She wore her peace like a soft coat, warm, calm, unshakable. Kiora didn't win by fighting. She won by walking away, by building something better, by healing where no one thought she could. And in that silence, she found everything she had been searching for: freedom, dignity, strength, not from revenge, but from peace. The sky was grey the day they buried Mama, the kind of grey that feels like silence itself. Kiora stood quietly near the grave, dressed simply, her face calm. She hadn't seen Mbeni in years, not since everything broke, not since truth replaced trust and wounds became lessons. Then she saw her, Mbeni, walking slowly through the crowd, holding a little girl in her arms, a child with soft features and searching eyes. She didn't look like Mbeni. She didn't look like Dario either, but she held onto her mother tightly, like she could feel the tension in the air. Their eyes met. Mbeni hesitated, just for a moment, then stepped closer, not too close, just enough for memories to rise like smoke between them. Kiora didn't flinch. She didn't speak right away. She just looked, not with anger, not with pity, just stillness. Mbeni's eyes were red, maybe from grief, maybe from guilt. Kiora took a deep breath and softly said, "I used to want you to feel what I felt." Her voice didn't shake. It didn't accuse. It simply existed, like a truth that had waited patiently to be spoken. Mbeni's lips parted, maybe to explain, maybe to apologize. But Kiora raised a hand gently, not to stop her, but to stop herself from being pulled back in. "But now," she continued, her eyes drifting to the little girl, "I just hope you never teach your daughter the things you did to your sister." And with that, she stepped back. No final words, no hugs, no scenes. Mbeni's tears fell fast and heavy, but Kiora didn't stay to watch. She turned and walked away, her heels pressing softly into the earth, her heart unburdened, because she had nothing left to give. No forgiveness forced, no rage relit, only truth and her peace. She had already cried those tears, already lived through the betrayal, already broken and healed. Now she wasn't a victim anymore, not the abandoned wife, not the deceived sister, but the woman who refused to be destroyed, the woman who chose reflection over revenge, the woman who no longer needed Mbeni's apology to move forward. She had given her blood, her trust, her silence. Today, she gave her a mirror and walked away as the woman they never saw coming. If this story touched you, share it. For every woman who chose peace over revenge, for every sister who gave more than she got, and for every soul still healing.